Let me begin with something you must never forget. Life is governed by seasons. Seasons are not just periods of time, they are divine appointments. And every season has a purpose, an assignment, and a demand. In Genesis, when God created the heavens and the earth, He instituted times and seasons. And from that moment on, everything, trees, animals, even human beings, has operated under this universal law. A mango tree does not bear fruit all year round. A farmer does not plant in the harvest season. And a wise man does not act out of season, because when you do the right thing at the wrong time, it becomes the wrong thing. There is a time to learn, and that time is called youth. There is a time to labor, and that time is called adulthood. And then there is a time to reflect, rest, and reign. That time is called old age. The danger is when you try to combine or confuse the seasons. I've met men and women advanced in age, gray with wisdom, bent not from age but from burdens they were never meant to carry. Why? Because they ignored the principle of seasons. They are still working like laborers in their harvest season, still giving like fountains to people who had their chance to draw water but never brought their own bucket. There is a moment in life when you must transition from being a provider to becoming a preserver, from pouring out to passing on. But if you continue to let the people around you treat you like a well that never runs dry, they will draw from you until you are dust. I remember a woman, a faithful church member in her late 70s, who came to me after a sermon. She had raised her children alone, supported them through school, helped them start businesses, but now as her health declined, they had abandoned her. Yet when she tried to say no to their constant demands for money, they accused her of being selfish. She wept and said, "Dr. Monroe, is it wrong to want peace?" And I looked her in the eye and said, "It's not wrong, it's righteous." Because when your season changes, your responsibility changes. What was once your duty becomes a distraction. What was once your calling becomes a trap if you don't learn to shift with the season. God Himself respects seasons. When He placed Adam in the garden, He gave him work in one season and rest in another. Even Jesus had seasons. 30 years of preparation for 3 years of ministry. And when His season on earth ended, He told the disciples, "It is good for you that I go." Why? Because He understood that staying beyond your season can sabotage your assignment. When you reach your old age, you are not just older, you are wiser. You are not supposed to be hustling, fighting, stretching, begging God for strength to do what others are fully capable of doing. No, you're meant to be speaking into lives, watching your legacy unfold and enjoying the fruit of your sacrifice. But if you don't respect the season you're in, others won't either. If you keep acting like it's your job to fix everybody's crisis, you will become a casualty of your own. So I urge you, in this sacred season of life, to walk in the grace of your timing. Let the people who refuse to sow in their youth learn what harvest feels like without your hand in the field. Let them grow. Let them stumble. Let them learn. That's not cruelty, that's creation. You are not cold, you are in alignment. You are not bitter, you are in season. Let every relationship, every responsibility, every request be measured by this question: does this belong in my season? Because the greatest tragedy in life is not death. It is to reach the season of legacy and have nothing left to give because you kept living in yesterday's assignment. Let those who have ears to hear this wisdom. Let me tell you something that might shock you. Compassion without discernment is not love. It's sabotage. There are people in your life who don't need help. They need to face the consequences of their choices. But because we've been taught that helping is always holy, many of us fall into the trap of enabling and call it ministry. I've seen it too many times. A mother bailing out her grown son for the 4th time because he spent his rent money on pleasure. A retired father emptying his pension to cover the debts of a daughter who refuses to budget. A friend giving a couch, a car, and eventually their peace of mind to someone who keeps promising they'll change. It looks like love, it sounds like loyalty, but it is a trap, and it's one that will drain your soul dry. There is a kind of help that heals, and then there is a kind of help that hinders. And when you help someone avoid their lesson, you're not just delaying their growth, you're interfering with God's process. You're stepping in where He's trying to shape them. You're giving what He's withholding to teach them wisdom, humility, or responsibility. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a caterpillar inside its cocoon, fighting to emerge as a butterfly. If you feel sorry for it and decide to cut the cocoon open, you'll cripple it. You'll destroy it. Why? Because the struggle is what builds its wings. The pressure, the resistance. It's necessary. And when you remove the struggle, you deny it the strength it needs to fly. That's what some of us are doing. We keep stepping in, cutting the cocoon for people who need to wrestle. We become spiritual crutches for people who have healthy legs but refuse to walk. We answer every call, fill every gap, and sacrifice our own joy, health, and financial future for people who are not committed to changing. And it gets worse in old age, because by then you're not just enabling out of love, you're enabling out of guilt. I wasn't there enough when they were young, you say. Or maybe I owe them this. No, you don't. What you owe is truth, wisdom, boundaries. You owe them the dignity of choice, the dignity of facing life and becoming who God called them to be without using you as a life raft. They never plan to step off. Sometimes the most powerful word you can say to someone is no. Not because you don't care, but because you care about their growth. And you care about your own peace. You care enough to let them find God in the wilderness of their decision. Helping people who refuse to help themselves will not make them love you more. It will only make them expect more. And when you finally break down, when your money is gone, your energy depleted, and your joy buried, they will not come to lift you. Because you were never seen as a person, you were seen as a source. And sources are only valued as long as they pour. That's the trap. The devil doesn't always show up in disaster. Sometimes he shows up in constant demands, dressed as people you love. He drains your destiny, not through one great fall, but through 1,000 small withdrawals from people who were never meant to sit at your table this long. There is a difference between carrying someone and being held hostage. And if you confuse the two, your old age will be a burden, not a blessing. You'll spend your rest years trying to fix what others never took seriously. That's not God's plan for you. You were never created to be the savior of everyone's situation. You were called to discern, to guide, to empower, not to rescue every time. So look closely at your life. Ask yourself, am I helping or am I hindering? Am I lifting them or am I lowering my own life to keep them comfortable? Because if you're not careful, what you think is love will become a leash. And the more you give, the tighter it gets. There are people in your life who seem to always be in need, always knocking on your door, always making a request. But there's a dangerous truth that you must recognize. Not every need is a call for help. Some of these people aren't looking for support. They're looking for someone to carry their burden so they don't have to deal with the consequences of their own actions. I've seen this many times. A young man who is perfectly capable of working but refuses to get a job, yet always finds a way to show up at your doorstep when his rent is due. A grown woman who made choices in her youth and now at 40 still expects her family to rescue her from the mess she created. They come with excuses, sometimes clever, sometimes emotional, but beneath it all, the real issue is simple. They have become toxic dependents. A toxic dependent is someone who, rather than growing, finds comfort in staying dependent on others. They don't learn from their failures, don't take responsibility for their actions, and certainly don't change their behavior. They want help, but they want help without change. And the more you give them, the more they take. They become parasites, feeding off your time, energy, resources, and love without ever giving back or ever trying to stand on their own 2 feet. I once had a conversation with a woman who poured everything into her sister. Everything. She gave her financial support when needed, was always there emotionally, and even helped her start her business. But after all that, her sister never took full ownership of her life. She kept failing, making the same mistakes, and always found a way to come back for more. She had no respect for her sister's efforts, because she saw her as a safety net, a guaranteed escape from the consequences of her decisions. And this is the danger. These toxic dependents will take and take until you're drained, and then they'll blame you for not helping more. They will guilt trip you into giving. And when you finally refuse, they'll make you feel like you failed them. They'll tell you that you don't care, that you're heartless, and that you've abandoned them. But the truth is, they are not the ones abandoned. You are. You see, toxic dependents are not looking for guidance. They're not seeking mentorship or wisdom. They don't want to hear your advice or learn from their mistakes. They want you to solve their problems for them. They want to avoid the pain of growth. They want to keep going through life with their hands out, expecting you to fill them up every time they run low. But here's the reality. If you enable them, you are not doing them any favors. In fact, you are robbing them of the ability to grow and mature. You are denying them the opportunity to take responsibility for their actions and learn from the pain of their mistakes. And in the long run, they will remain stuck. They will never learn the lessons they need to learn. And they will continue to repeat the cycle of dependence. They will always be looking to you to fix their problems, never realizing that the key to their freedom is learning to carry their own weight. I'll tell you this. The hardest thing to do is watch someone you love struggle, especially when you know you can help. But let me ask you this. Is it really love to deny them the consequences of their actions? Is it really love to rob them of the opportunity to grow? Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to stop enabling and let them face the reality of their own choices. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to let them fall so they can learn how to get up. We all have a responsibility to care for others, to guide and support them when necessary. But there is a fine line between helping and hindering. If you are constantly rescuing someone from their own poor decisions, you are not helping them. You are holding them back from their own potential. And eventually, you will be the one who suffers for it. Toxic dependence feeds off your resources, and the more you give, the more they expect. They do not respect your time, your boundaries, or your well-being. They see you as a tool to solve their problems, not as a person with your own needs, dreams, and desires. And when you start to say no, when you finally recognize the pattern and choose to step back, they will often turn on you, making you feel guilty for choosing yourself over their demands. But listen to me, you cannot pour from an empty cup. What's even more dangerous is when you begin to believe that you are the only one who can save them, that their growth and success are solely dependent on you. This is a lie. No one person has the power to change another. God alone is the source of transformation. We are all responsible for our own growth. You can guide, you can help, you can show the way, but you cannot live someone else's life for them. As you grow older, you encounter more and more people like this, and you must learn to identify them quickly. Not every need is a real need. Some people just need to be allowed to fall so they can learn to rise. Some people need to be left alone to wrestle with their choices. And that is not cruelty, that is wisdom. If you don't protect yourself from these toxic dependencies, they will drain you dry, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. You will find yourself living in a constant state of exhaustion, guilt, and frustration, never able to truly rest because you are too busy carrying the weight of others who should be carrying their own. It is time to be honest with yourself. It is time to ask, am I truly helping or am I simply enabling? And once you understand the difference, it will be easier to set boundaries, to say no, and to protect your peace and your future. You've worked hard your entire life. You've invested your time, your energy, and your resources in building something meaningful, whether it's a family, a business, a ministry, or a legacy of wisdom and grace. And now, as you move into the latter seasons of your life, there is a temptation that comes with age. The temptation to give everything to people who will never appreciate it. People who don't understand the true value of what you've worked for, and people who are not worthy of inheriting your legacy. One of the hardest things to do, especially as you grow older, is to guard your legacy. You have poured years of effort into creating something that is worth passing on, whether it's a financial inheritance, a spiritual heritage, or simply the wisdom and values you've accumulated over the years. But as you age, there will be many who come seeking what you've built. And the temptation will always be there to give it freely, to distribute it without careful thought, without discernment, without understanding the character of those asking for it. We must understand something very important. Your legacy is not meant for everyone. Your wisdom is not meant for the careless or the irresponsible. Your wealth is not meant for those who will squander it. Your time is not meant for those who only want to use it for their own gain. And above all, your peace, your sense of fulfillment, and your joy are not meant to be sacrificed on the altar of someone else's dysfunction. Too many people in their later years end up in a place of regret, wishing they had set clearer boundaries, wishing they had protected their hard-earned assets and wisdom. I know of so many older individuals who, in their desire to be generous, ended up giving away their peace and diluting their legacy because they were too quick to share it with the wrong people. They gave their resources to those who would never honor it, their time to people who would never appreciate it, and their energy to individuals who would drain them dry, without ever acknowledging the cost. Guarding your legacy doesn't mean being selfish. It means being wise. It means recognizing that your time, your energy, and your resources are precious. It means knowing that what you have built is sacred and should not be given away to those who are not prepared to handle it, to those who will not value it, or to those who are too immature to understand the sacrifice it took to create. I've witnessed many older individuals who, out of a sense of obligation or guilt, continue to give when they should be withdrawing, not in a way that's stingy or selfish, but in a way that allows them to preserve their peace and protect their purpose. And you must understand this: protecting your peace is not a luxury, it is a necessity. If you don't preserve your inner peace, if you don't protect the sanctity of your time and your legacy, then you will lose the very essence of who you are. In your old age, you should be able to look back and see the fruit of your labor. You should be able to rest in the knowledge that you have built something that will last, something that has had an eternal impact. But how can you do that if you are constantly dragged into battles that you've already fought in your younger years? How can you rest if you're still dealing with the same issues, the same people, and the same challenges that you should have allowed to work themselves out long ago? Protecting your legacy means saying no to the things, the people, and the responsibilities that no longer align with your purpose. It means making hard decisions about who you give your time and energy to, and being honest with yourself about whether someone truly deserves to be a part of the inheritance you've worked so hard to create. There are those who will come into your life in your older years, seeking to use you, seeking to manipulate your goodwill for their own gain. And while you may feel the pull of compassion or the weight of family obligation, it is vital that you ask yourself, are they truly worthy of your investment? Are they someone who has proven through their actions that they will honor and respect what you have given them? Or are they simply looking for a way to take? One of the hardest things to accept is that sometimes the people closest to you, the ones you love the most, may not be the ones you need to be pouring into. And that is not a reflection of your love for them. It's a reflection of your understanding of the sacredness of your legacy. You may have invested in them, you may have given them the tools, but if they refuse to use them wisely, if they continue to squander the opportunities you've provided, then it is time to step back and let them face the consequences of their own choices. Your legacy is more than just what you've accumulated in life. It is what you have created and what you will leave behind. And the greatest gift you can give yourself in your later years is to protect that legacy fiercely. Don't let anyone or anything steal your peace, dilute your purpose, or rob you of the joy of seeing the fruit of your labor. You were not made to spend your last years fighting battles that should have been fought long ago. Nor were you meant to keep giving to those who refuse to grow. Your old age should be a time of reflection, of celebration, and of resting in the knowledge that you have done all you were meant to do. And the more you protect your peace, the more you can truly enjoy the fruit of the labor you've put in for so many years. It is not selfish to guard your legacy. It is wise. And if you don't learn to do it, you will end up empty and bitter, wishing you had been more discerning, more protective, more willing to say no to those who would have stolen from you. So guard your legacy, because no one else will do it for you. Keep it sacred. Keep it protected. And allow yourself to rest in the legacy that you have built.